the new action here. I would add an error message. And as an error message, I will convert integer to text, and I will take my variable that I know there's something wrong with, the wave number parameter. Just take whatever sound you want. I'll just take the generic error, and I will print it out. That way, I can double check that the wave number is what I think it should be when it comes into the function. So I know that that isn't wrong. So I go now, and I should get the message here 1, which will also should show up in my trigger debugging window. You need to use debug. Anyway, it's showing up here 3, 4, 5, but it's still spawning infestors. So we know that there's nothing wrong with the wave number that's being sent in. Actually, you probably want to use debug message. It's even better. All you need to do is type the message here. Like so, and we take the parameter wave number. Because if you use debug message, it will show up in the trigger debugging window. If you look now, it will show in-game relatively soon there, and then it comes up here in the trigger debugging window, which can be very useful, especially if you have code that moves really, really quickly. And if you have multiple threads and something is wrong, you might want to see what was executed at what time. And then if you use this debug printing thing, you can see in which order, and you can see the exact time it was executed and so on, which is very, very useful. So, we know that there's nothing wrong with the wave number coming in, which then tells me that there's probably something wrong here. And if I look at the unit type it's set to spawn, I can see the index that it's using for wave data is wrong. It is spawning max waves. And if I look in my setup, the last wave I set up is the infestor. So what should be here is obviously the parameter wave number should be here. Then it should be spawning the correct unit type from this array of units. This here, index errors, is the most common error I see when people send me maps and say that something doesn't work. Either they forget to set it, so all their array indexes are 0, or they set the wrong variable at the wrong place, or something like that. So when you're debugging your map, pay extra attention to indexes. Far too often I see people doing this, and errors everywhere because of array indexes. It happens all the time. So let's try this again. And now it wants correct type. Still only a few units are moving. And if you pay a bit attention, we notice that only the units that spawn in the center seem to move. So what does that mean? We look in the trigger editor, and we look at the order, enter spawn. There's nothing wrong with this function, as far as I can see. Orders move to the center of end region. Nope. So we're gonna look in data editor, and we'll see my spawn region here. And another common problem, region is too small, so some units spawn outside of the region. So we'll just make this region 15 maybe? 15 by 15, so it's massive. Thus any unit spawning here should fit inside the region. Also a very common bug. Region size, people don't take it into account, units spawn outside, and they don't move like you expect to. You see, after increasing the region size, every unit moves perfectly fine into their doom over there at the end region. So let's just watch this. Right now, this map seems to work fairly well. There doesn't seem to be any more bugs. Let's just watch it to the end and see if there's anything else popping up. And there we get our array index overflow. Very, very common error. You can see it here as well. Array index overflow. Now in this case, it's very simple why we get it. Obviously, in the setup, I only set up a limited amount of waves. Infestors is the last one. I set up 10 waves. So I should probably check in the spawner here. Make an if, then. And I should check if the current wave is larger than max waves. Because if it is, we should disable this trigger and just exit. Where's disable? Turn trigger on off. Current trigger to off, and then we can just put this thing into the else. So if we reach max waves, it will turn this trigger off. So let's just test this. I reduce the spawn delay so we get the units spawning a bit faster. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and trigger shuts off. So it's working now. Alright. Let's go back into the triggers. Let's add some more waves. So I'm gonna add one more wave here. And mothership, 4 motherships. See what happens. And the first thing we get is an array index overflow error. Once again, it's a fairly obvious thing. If we look in the trigger debugging, it happened right at the start of the map, which means that it's in one of the initialization triggers. And you can see here it's in the setup function, which is here, and the only thing we do here is call add waves. So obviously we're adding more waves than we have our variable size that we have up here. My wave data is 10 records maximum. Now I could just increase this, but instead I'm gonna add a check here, which you probably should do in most of your maps. So I'm gonna check if wave number it's larger than, and then I need to add a setting here